They say all families have problems, but it would seem that the Beckhams have really taken it to the next level. Last night, Brooklyn Beckham, who is the oldest of David and Victoria's children, came out with 12 explosive claims against his parents, from controlling his life through social media to completely ruining his wedding. Hadley Freeman is a columnist and feature writer at the Sunday Times. Hadley, you're always welcome on this programme. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you two?
Yes, we're very well indeed. How far up your head did your eyebrows go when you read Brooklyn Beckham's Instagram post?
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking. That's the first thing to say about it. And also, there's a feeling of inevitability about it, not just because there's clearly been a break coming between Brooklyn and his parents for a while, but I really feel like the Beckhams were kind of the vanguard of families, full stop, but certainly celebrity families who used their children as part of their brand. You know, from the moment Brooklyn was born, his parents were holding him in an OK Magazine and Hello Magazine. Certainly since social media, which Victoria and David have very much embraced, the children have been used as part of that. And I have found it, I have thought about this a lot, as someone who's a not celebrity, but with children, is how does it affect the children when parents are using them to up their follower numbers, which at its base is kind of what it's about. And that was the part of Brooklyn's post that really kind of struck home, I think, that his parents use the kids as part of their brand.
I'm so glad you've said all of that, Hadley, because actually I too feel really, really sorry for him. I think it is easy to be cynical about him and say he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's got a gifted and privileged life. He has undoubtedly got money in the bank. He has found the love of his life. This feeling that somehow he has deserved the difficulties he's had. It's not really fair. He's had no choice in his childhood, has he?
No, and I really do feel, as a sort of long-term obsessive celebrity watcher, that the kids of celebrities who do best are the ones who are kept off the red carpet, the ones who aren't put in the spotlight, the ones whose faces we wouldn't recognize on the street. And I can reel off straight off the bat, all of the Beckham kids' names, probably their ages too. And Brooklyn has especially been mocked for his occasional attempts at various careers, whether it was photography or cooking. And it's sort of a no-win situation for him at this point. I mean, yes, he could go off and lead an anonymous life. On the other hand, he has been raised in a family which believes celebrity is everything. And if your parents are there thinking that the most important thing in the world is fame, then the kids are going to grow up thinking that. So as much as Brooklyn wants to break out of that bubble, and you can see he's sort of trying to do it, he is still very much perpetuating it. He is posting this on social media. He's posting all the time about his wife. So it's this sort of finger trap that he's in, that he can't break out of it because he's so immersed in that world anyway.
Yeah. I think the detail that's going to stay with everybody is this first dance at his wedding. So just the language around it is just really odd, Hadley. He said it was an excruciating moment in my life. I was called up on stage. He thought he was going to do the first dance with his wife. In fact, his mum was on stage, and he says that she danced on him. Now, can you just unpack that a little bit for us?
I have two sons myself, and just the thought of one of my children ever posting that I danced inappropriately with them at their wedding or on them is so horrifying. And of course, lots of people are already going through all the coverage of the wedding at the time. I think Vogue did an official report and pointing out that there are discrepancies between what was written at the time about the wedding and what Brooklyn says now. But I think the point that he's kind of trying to make is that, no matter what he does, his parents have the spotlight. And the problem for him really is that the only reason he's famous is because of his parents. And if he still wants to be famous, which judging from his social media and his various forays into celebrity type careers, he does, then he's always going to be at battle with his parents.
Yeah. David Beckham is in Davos for the World Economic Forum. Just leave a pause there. He's not addressed Brooklyn's comments, but he has spoken to CNBC about children and social media. Here he is.
I've always spoke about, social media and the power of social media, for the good and for the bad. The bad we've talked about with what kids can access these days, and it can be dangerous. But what I've found personally, especially with my kids as well, use it for the right reasons. I've been able to use my platform and my following, for UNICEF, and it's been the biggest tool to make people aware of what's going on around the world for children. And I've tried to do the same. I've tried to do the same with my children, to educate them. They make mistakes. Children are allowed to make mistakes. That's how they learn. So that's what I try to teach my kids. But you have to sometimes let them make those mistakes as well.
Gosh, now how do you interpret that? I mean, clearly the question was being asked specifically about what's happened in the last 24 hours. He's kind of dodged it, but he has told us something, hasn't he?
Well, a little bit. I was looking at David and Victoria's Instagram over Christmas, because that's the kind of cool middle-aged woman I am. And it was amazing how much they were posting, and they were posting very kind of intimate family moments. I thought there is, videos of Victoria and David dancing in front of a fire, videos of the kids dancing with their grandparents. And I just kind of thought, why am I seeing this? Why is this being shown to the world? And David and Victoria, both have had these Netflix documentaries, of quote unquote, done about them, which are basically just advertorials. And I think it is very confusing for kids if their parents are presenting a very picture perfect image of their lives, this idea that nothing is off limits, and yet they see something different off screen. And that is very, very confusing.
In the documentary about Victoria Beckham, there is an excruciating moment, actually, where she is awarded the Entrepreneur of the Year award. And I can't remember the magazine that was sponsoring it. And it's her daughter, her teenage daughter, who goes up on stage and gives the speech about her and gives her the award. And I just thought, gosh, that is crossing a line. Actually, it's very difficult anyway to ask your children to applaud you. I think that's the wrong way round, isn't it? Let alone give you an award. It's all topsy-turvy, Hadley. It's all topsy-turvy.
No, it's terrible. And, to be fair to the Beckhams, they're not the only celebrities who use their kids so much on their social media. I've been watching the Baldwins, Alec and his wife Eladia, for a while, and all those children are constantly being featured and held up as, sort of proof that the parents are perfect. And it is very weird. And obviously, I am in no way comparable to the Beckhams, but even just this Sunday, I was out with my kids and someone came up to me in a cafe and said that they'd read my column that morning in the paper because they recognized my photo. And I could just see my kids being really quite weirded out by this, like that a stranger felt that they knew their mother and their mother was now spending time talking with this stranger. And I mean, it's a very tiny microcosm of what a celebrity's child has to go through. But I think that idea that your parent has an image that's out there in the world and strangers know about them, and your parent wants strangers to know about them and cares about that, is a very confusing moral message for kids.
What do you think will happen now to Brooklyn and people's opinion of him in this country? There is a trope here as well, isn't there, of a lovely, very innocent English man marrying a dastardly American wife. We've got Meghan and Harry. We've had Gwyneth and Chris. We've had Edward and Mrs. Simpson. Your accent, Hadley, leads me to believe that you can answer this question boldly.
It's true. All of us American women are plotting to take your English sons away from their parents.
You nasty women.
It is amazing how similar the Brooklyn story is with Prince Harry. I mean, Prince Harry has the same thing, which is that he made a whole big deal about how he wanted to break away from the royal family, and it turned out what he wanted to be was a celebrity. So again, it's someone who feels that their validation comes from being known in the eyes of others. It's similar to what Brooklyn's going through, I think. But in terms of what happens next, the fact is, as Brooklyn's going to find out, people are a lot more interested in David and Victoria than they are in Brooklyn. And I think ultimately the casual public is going to stay on David and Victoria's side. And the fact is they have come through much worse than this in the past. The brand Beckham, I could suspect, will just roll on.
Lovely to talk to you, Hadley. Thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon. That is Hadley Freeman.